how far ahead of the college football world are the Georgia Bulldogs, or more specifically, are they further? How much further ahead are they than Alabama? I think that you could consider there being a gap, but I do want to look through history a little bit. And because look, what's happening right now with Georgia, a potential dynasty, right? It's not quite a dynasty, but a potential dynasty looming in the 2020s. Alabama did that in the 2010s, and it's bled into the 2020s, their success. And it's an empire over there, right? Is there any better way to put it? That's what's brewing in Georgia, and I think we need to be realistic about where we're at in time. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post here, talking about just the college football race and where Georgia's at. This is something that, if you would have told Georgia fans this 10 years ago, they wouldn't have believed you that all of this happened, and it's here. Georgia's ahead of Alabama in the race right now. Look, they're ahead of everybody else. And the SEC, Georgia's the best program in the SEC right now. I say this, I feel comfortable saying this. Like, Alabama's history and Nick Saban's history, and he's still a fantastic coach right now. It's still a fantastic program. Right now, Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs are a better program. We're talking about in current time. It's just like any sport, right? Tom Brady's the greatest football player of all time. Who's the greatest right now? It's Patrick Mahomes. It's how these things work. And Georgia has the opportunity to really build something in the 2020s that we saw Alabama do in the 2010s. But if you just look through history, right? What happens? Bama goes back to back, and they compete almost every year, right? Georgia has to compete almost every year if they want to do what Alabama did. So what I want to talk about is this an overreaction, right? The last 2 years has caused a lot of pundits, a lot of headlines. A lot of things are said about the Georgia Bulldogs, and I've said some of them myself about how they're the best program far and away. I've thought that they're going to win pretty much every single game that they played the last 2 years, and guess what? They did, -1, and they did avenge that loss in the national championship against guess who? The Alabama Crimson Tide, right? So, but are we ahead of ourselves? Are we getting ahead of ourselves? Because what did Alabama do? They go back to back. They beat Texas, then Notre Dame. That's with Greg McElroy. Then you win one with A.J. McCarron. You beat... I've got my history off. I'm trying to do this off the top of my head. But they did go back to back. And they did... A.J. McCarron did beat... Oh my goodness. College football champions. Here's my point. I do have it pulled up now. You go back-to-back in 11-12. Florida State and Auburn play for the national championship. Ohio State wins the first college football playoff. But then look, but Alabama was in that playoff. And then they won the next year. And then they lost the championship game the next year. And then they won the championship game the next year. And then they lost the championship game the next year. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, looking through what they've accomplished under Nick Saban, is Georgia going to do the same thing? And are they far ahead of everybody, right? Because the way I look at it, I don't think anyone really is as good as Georgia in the SEC right now. I don't think that anyone is going to beat them in 2023. I think they're going to go 12-0 in the regular season. I think they're going to win the SEC championship. That's how I feel about the Georgia Bulldogs in this present moment. And I think that I'm not the only one with that opinion. Now, with Bama, do they crawl back from what they were and beat Georgia in the SEC championship this year, or just win the SEC in general, win a national championship, or is that over? Has Georgia stiff-armed them and kind of said, nope, we're going to run this now? I think what's interesting about this conversation, and I have gone in a couple of different directions in just this handful of minutes with you guys, but what's interesting about this conversation is we're in a present moment, and this is just life in general. We're in a present moment. We don't know where we're at in time. All right? We never really know. We know what's happened behind us, but we don't know what's ahead of us. And in turn, the present is a little bit of a question mark, right? We know that Georgia won the last 2 national championships. We know that Kirby Smart's been building something at Georgia. It's taken some time to build, right? Obviously, year 2, they lose the national championship to Alabama. But we don't know what's ahead. We don't know if the Alabama dynasty is over. We don't know if Georgia is going to start their own. We don't know if someone else is going to come in here and take over the college football world and it'd be a separate dynasty. Could be LSU. I'm not going to say could be to some teams, but that's a popular answer. Long story short, Georgia's ahead of everyone in college football right now. Across the board, recruiting, coaching, talent, players, culture, success, all of it. Georgia is doing it better than anyone in the country right now. But the real question, are they doing it better than Alabama did a decade ago? I think the answer to that question is yes. All right, guys, links are down below. Make sure you're checking out. I can't believe I didn't show you this. Double Dogs, Dogstruction. Look at that. Is that image kind of what we're looking at right now? Georgia jumping ahead of Alabama, dropping the football down, asserting their dominance? You tell me. Links are down below. Thanks for watching.